So, a big update. It's coming. Probably. It seems like the TF2 team has moved away from releasing summer updates in late June and instead has been pushing them to early July. With Gunmetal coming out on July 2nd and Meet Your Match coming out on July 7th. And given that they're probably taking a long weekend, my guess is for a July 6th release for this jungle Pyro update. Or whatever. We already have some idea on what a lot of this update is going to bring, but we just won't know what it actually is until it's out. For now, we wait. And hey, speaking of Meet Your Match, last year before that update, I made a bingo card based on predictions of what I thought would happen in that update. Didn't get bingo, but I don't think a lot of people really predicted what Meet Your Match ended up being. So while we're all waiting, we might as well do one for this year's big update. And there you go. Each line will be separated into different categories. So here we go. Starting off with balance, predictions. More stuff I expect than necessarily want, but it could be both. Last year I put a Babyface's Blaster buff in the first box, and you know what? I'm gonna do it again. It's gonna happen eventually, right? Especially when the balance blog post directly mentions usage stats and determining what gets changed. And the number of people using the Babyface's Blaster dropped pretty dramatically since that big nerf. That was 2 years ago. And I mean, hey, with a bunch of Scouts' other weapons getting nerfed this update, maybe they'll throw him a bone. I'm making the prediction that the Righteous Bison will in fact get buffed. Probably not reverted to its previous version, but buffed from the new one. There's almost no way that nobody on the TF2 team heard the complaints about the Meet Your Match change. And that nerf just kinda came out of nowhere. The Bison didn't seem like a super popular weapon before that, so in some ways I'm kinda surprised to see people care as much as they do. Maybe it's because it went from something unique and fun to one of the worst weapons in the entire game. Yeah, that's probably why. Okay, so a lot of the balance blog post was focused around changing weapons that were banned competitively. Not all of them, but a good chunk. And I was kinda surprised to see that the disciplinary action was not there. I'd say that weapon's pretty likely to get changed. Something that will result in the weapon being overall worse. It also seems kind of odd that they changed the atomizer and not the soda popper. I mean, they did last year, but it wasn't in a super meaningful way. I could see them making an attempt to change the hype effect for a second time. Maybe removing the extra jumps entirely and replacing it with something else. And if they're nerfing the Ambassador, I don't imagine they'll keep the Diamond back the same. Especially when the blog post complains about being killed by spies from across the map, which the Diamondback is also capable of doing, but without needing to actually get a headshot. So they'll probably do something there. Now for the good things in the update. Community maps are basically a given at this point. They directly asked for jungle-themed ones, and we also know that they're planning their own jungle map too. But I'm going to specifically predict that there will be 3 community maps and 1 Valve-made one. The next patch is also likely to provide more updates and improvements for the matchmaking system. There were talks about further improvements to matchmaking a while back, and yeah, this one is probably kind of a given too. A lot of this road probably will be, since there's actually been quite a bit of information going around about this update, so to some degree we do kinda know what to expect. Next, we got a new Source Filmmaker shorts and or a new comic. I believe there was some kind of confirmation that they were working on a new short, though I don't know if it's guaranteed to be connected to this update. And if it's not, there will probably be some kind of tie-in comic. The new Pyro weapons will be interesting and well-balanced. I'm kind of expecting there to be 3, maybe 1 for each loadout slot. So let's say that at least 2/3 of the weapons are good. They add something completely new that doesn't rely on a crit gimmick and opens up some new options for Pyro. Hopefully. Did you ever think that there would be a time when they're adding too few hats? I mean, we get 2 or maybe 3 hat crates per year, and that's about it. The Meet Your Match update only added a few badges and some pastime hats, so I'm talking at least 10 new cosmetic items and maybe 3 new taunts. Now for some Pyro balances. I'm expecting there to be some kind of an attempt to fix the flamethrower's flame particles being generally inconsistent and depending on your network connection. In the Pyro Won the War blog post from last year, they specifically linked to the community-made From Pyro With Love website that directly mentions these problems. So at the very least, the TF2 team is aware of them. The Extinguisher is due for a buff at this point. Tough Break hit it pretty hard. And next, I'm predicting that people will complain. Oh hey, this is actually meant to be the free space. What a coincidence. The reserve shooter. A change is coming. I am almost sure of it. It's a weapon banned competitively, it's one people complain about casually, and this update is supposedly meant to include a lot of pyro rebalances. They're probably going to change it sooner or later, and this just seems like the ideal time to do it. The sharpened volcano fragment is pretty awful, and it's gotta be one of the least used weapons in the game. Last year, I predicted that both the sun on the stick and the fragment would be ignored, but the sun on the stick was actually buffed. I mean, it was a pretty much pointless buff, but it happened. And something's gotta happen to the volcano fragment at some point. Now for the bad. Not every part of an update is gonna be good on its initial release. I think Meet Your Match showed us that pretty well. And it's possible that the new pyro weapons will be great, but it's also possible that they will end up being gimmicky and mostly useless. Possibly relying on crit gimmicks, like so many of Pyro's other weapons do. And like for the pyro weapons are good box, let's say that if there are 3 new weapons and 2/3 of them end up being useless and gimmicky, then this box gets a check. Hopefully it doesn't, but I mean hopefully none of this row gets a check. Either there is no attempt to fix the flamethrower, or the attempt is ineffectual, still buggy, and doesn't improve much of anything. Unless they really overhaul how flames work, I could kinda see this one happening. I do think there will be an attempt, I'm just not sure how much it will end up fixing. Something completely unrelated to what was changed in the update ends up getting broken. For example, if there's nothing in the update related to Man vs. Machine, somehow something in Man vs. Machine still ends up broken. It's happened before, I wouldn't be too surprised to see it happen again. A weapon is overbuffed and becomes overpowered. This one can also apply to any new weapons that happen to be blatantly overpowered. Or, more likely, a weapon is overnerfed and becomes underpowered. Depending on if the changes in the blog post go in as is, some might argue that this is kinda guaranteed, but we won't actually know until it happens. Okay, now for some balance changes I personally hope might happen. A buff for the Babyface's Blaster and Righteous Bison could also be down here, but I kinda think they're more likely to happen, at least a little bit. So first, buffs for the Natasha and the Brass Beast. Gunmetal made them actually somewhat decent, and Meet Your Match mostly took that away for seemingly no reason. The Whirlpool Caber is really bad. It should be buffed. And the Claymore is really boring now, and that's lame. They took away what actually made it unique, and now it's just kinda there. Other swords do what it does, but better. They don't necessarily have to revert it back to its pre-Tough Break version, but just give it something. I feel like the Classic has potential to be a really fun weapon if it was buffed in the right way. It doesn't need to be anything super practical, but the weapon could be a lot better than it is currently. There's a lot of things that I hope get buffed, but I'd really like to see the Buffalo Stake actually be good. Again, it doesn't need to be anything super practical, but if Melee Heavy was something at least almost on par with Demo Knight, it could be a lot of fun. And the stake is banned in 6s, so I wouldn't be too surprised if they ended up changing it in some way, but I really hope they don't just make it worse and do nothing else. I could see maybe changing the speed bonus and then buffing it in a bunch of other ways, but as long as it's better overall, that should be fine. Hey, that's it. It's all filled up. And once the update comes out, we'll see if we get bingo. And if we do, I don't know what'll happen. There'll be like a party or something. But, just like last year, I'll do a mini contest to see who in the comments can come closest to predicting what might happen. So, if you wanna, comment around 3 to 5 predictions, and whoever is the most accurate will get a key. You like keys? They open boxes. You like boxes, and now you can open them. Or you can trade it on the black market or something. I won't judge. This video's over. Comment something. Or don't. Bye!